Stevens Point Public Policy and General Government Meeting, recorded February 14, 2022.
So, public policy and general government, let's start with the roll call. There you are.
Jerlich,
Here.
Christensen,
Here.
Kiemer,
Here.
Kneebone,
Here.
Fischler. Here. Five present.
Okay, so first up is the license list, which is a Class B liquor license for Tokyo Steakhouse, 1617 Academy Avenue, beginning March 22nd. Also Class B liquor license for Upstream Cider LLC at 2041 Madison, beginning March 1st. A temporary Class B for the Boys and Girls Club of Portage County on Michigan Avenue, 941. A wine license. It is for a cheese and wine night, I believe. And then a temporary Class B license for wine license for Central Wisconsin Symphony Orchestra, 800 Main Street. Oh, and I forgot, the Boys and Girls Club is on April 22nd, and the orchestra is on June 23rd, 2022. So I think we can take these together. Do you have a motion?
I'll move approval.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, wonderful. Any questions from the committee or comments?
No concerns.
From the police, either? Okay. From the public, any questions or concerns? Okay, hearing no further discussion, we'll take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Up next, it's right on the border here, the street closings. What is wrong with my machine right now?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, you have street closing requests for the Central Wisconsin Solstice.
There it is,
On June
yeah.
23rd, and the Swamp Monster Adult Flashlight Easter Egg Hunt on May 4th, both reoccurring events.
Right, and I think we can take these together too. Do you have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Richardson?
I'll
Oh,
second.
sorry. Yeah. And, Alder Keeler seconds. Any questions or comments from the committee first? Any questions or comments from the police department?
Nope.
Okay, from the general public? Hearing no further discussion, we'll hear a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. And then we have the proposed code amendments, item number 4, to sections 21.03 concerning the responsibilities of owner and occupants, through sections 21.07, general requirements relating to safe and sanitary maintenance of the premises. Director Konoski, you will be commenting. Okay.
Thank you, and Mr. Cordes is here as well, who was the main author behind the proposed code amendments. As the committee may recall, this is an ongoing request to update Chapter 21, which is our maintenance and occupancy code for the city of Stevens Point. Last month, we looked at definitions and a few other smaller items. This is a non-action item. This is more for feedback. When we get through the entire code amendment, at that point, we would bring it back for final consideration. But the changes that were made or proposed to be made with Chapter 2103 through 2107, there's really 4 major ones. 2103 sub 8 adds the section that gives the ability for the code official to request a compliance plan for larger and multi-unit infestations. This has become a more common problem in the city of Stevens Point with cockroach infestations, among other things. And so this allows us the ability to request essentially a plan to address these issues and concerns that we don't currently have within Chapter 21. Chapter 2103 sub 13 really further identifies and regulates the number and location of recreational vehicles stored on a residential property in the city. This has been an ongoing issue where there are a number of inconsistencies within our code, and so trying to address that and put it and codify it within code goes a long way. Chapter 2103 sub 21. Currently our code does not have a height restriction on how tall your grass could be, and so we issue grass orders more or less the last several years at the 8-inch height. But this puts it in our code and justifies it as we go out and issue grass cutting orders. It also allows for an individual to submit a plan for a natural lawn. And not that we want to put the Community Development Department in charge of natural lawns. One of the challenges that we run into is somebody wants to do a natural lawn, they submit their request to the city and we say, A-okay, looks good. And then they have to implement the plan that they've put together. And in order for us to be able to when we field complaints from neighbors, we can say that this individual has a plan in place with the city and that they are following the plan that they've worked through. And then finally, it's more or less just updating the code to address changes in the building code, ensure that there's more consistency between the occupancy maintenance code and the building code itself. So more than happy to answer any other questions, but if you want specific answers, Mr. Cordes is probably the one you want to talk to.
I do have a question. I don't, maybe this might be too specific for here, but about this question of 3 RVs, they can be parked on a, oh, okay. So these 3 RVs, up to 3 RVs, could be parked currently on someone's front yard, is my understanding.
So right now, there's no limit as to the number or the location.
Okay.
I would say within most municipalities, there is either a requirement that you can't park anything off of a hard surface, or the limitation is side yard and rear yard. The city of Wausau takes it one step further, and anything that's 30 feet or longer can't be parked anywhere outside, unless it's on an approved hard surface. So that means from the tongue to the bumper of whatever that, some of these very long campers then need to be parked on a hard surface. So there is some variation, but almost every city either has a limitation to side or rear yard or no parking off of a hard surface. Now, understand this isn't regulating anything that's parked on an approved hard surface. That can be gravel and blacktop and things like that.
Okay. So when it's beyond the front plane of the primary structure, I'm not entirely clear on what that means.
The closest protrusion of the front of the dwelling towards the street.
Okay.
And that is defined in the definition section, front plane. The one thing I put in here, because when I put together a code amendment, I think about, okay, who's it going to affect negatively? And the only thing I could come up with, we have some very narrow lots and people don't have enough room to get anything in their backyard. So there is an exemption in here that they can store one thing in the front yard if they don't have a 10-foot clear span either on side yard or between their detached garage and their dwelling. That we can measure pretty easily on GIS. That's a handful of properties, but again, when I look at something like this, I'm like, who is it going to affect negatively that they're not going to have any options? And so there is one exemption there. That may be something you want to throw out and say we just don't even want to deal with it. And if they don't have access off alleyway or something like that, but that is an exemption that I put in there. They would still be allowed if they didn't have a 10-foot clear span access to the rear yard or side yard, that they could store one in the front yard.
Were there any other questions on this
And just so you know, Mr. Chairman, too, we do not need action on this tonight.
discussion?
Discussion, allow people who may be watching it at home tomorrow or whatever to weigh in, and that'll give us opportunities to see how many people this may adversely affect.
I just have a question.
Oh, yes.
You gotta come up.
What?
We need
Oh,
you
yes,
to come
can
up to the
you
lectern.
Go to the lectern, please.
Oh, really? I just wanted to ask you guys now.
Yeah, the microphone needs to pick up your voice.
All right, I was just wondering, what's the definition of a natural lawn? I was just curious how you have that worded.
I don't have the definition with me, but I'm going to try to explain it to you. Just it's not going to be verbatim. It's ultimately native plantings. Okay. Actually, we're working with Wild Ones, which is a chapter within Wisconsin that specializes in native plantings. And we're actually working with the Parks Department, and they are developing actually a template. And it's going to be a 2-page template, and it's going to also have links to different plants and things like that. So they're really excited about this. Actually, Fish and Wildlife Service was on our last conference call. So, ultimately, it's just native planting. And the reason I ask for a plan is a lot of what our department does is get in neighbor disputes. So I have one neighbor with a perfectly manicured lawn, another neighbor with a pollinated lawn. This happened just last year. And they called me to complain. She had submitted a plan. I was out there with a plan. And they wanted to know what they could do. And I said, well, as soon as her plants grow across your property, you can cut them. And they were literally out there with a paper scissors cutting through the chain link fence to trim plants like that. So a lot of this is just dealing with neighbor issues. And by them submitting a plan that allows me to go out and say, yes, they're in compliance with their plan.
Thank you. Any further questions or discussion? Oh, yes, please.
So I saw here tarps get restricted to 30 days.
Name and address, sir, please.
Stephen Klein, 301 Union Street. I was looking here and I saw that we're restricting tarps to 30 days. It seems inappropriately short. We deal with things like winter here in Wisconsin. Tarps are generally something you would use for like a temporary remedy while you're trying to fix something. For those of you who don't know, shingles actually can't be installed in the winter if you want your warranty. When you install shingles in the winter, I should correct that and say they can't easily be installed in the winter. When you install shingles in the winter, I believe the cutoff is something like below 40 degrees. Don't quote me on that. You have to seal each individual shingle down with tar. And if you don't, there is a very good chance your shingles will not seal down properly. And good luck getting a contractor to do that properly. So anyone who wants their shingles to have their full warranty and properly installed is going to have to do so in the summer. So 30 days for a tarp covering, if you have a leak that occurs in the winter, you could run into some issues there. Also, it can take more than 30 days just to get bids from a contractor. Not to mention, most contractors are going to be booked out several months. I'm booked out probably 2-3 months right now. I know contractors who quit taking bids for 2022. And this, the next item was, it's not so much something that's being changed, but more just something that I saw there and I found a little entertaining. It's required here in code to have hot water in your home. And, but you have to ask the city permission to put a hot water heater in. I found that a little amusing. I've lived in several homes without hot water all around the world. And I would have to say that my coffee pot is more important than my hot water heater. I just thought that was a little amusing.
Oh, thank you. Further discussion, further questions? No?
Just a note, Mr. Chairman, as I said, this is discussion only. If someone has comments or questions relating to this chapter, contact the Community Development Department, and we will see about modifying the code a little bit further to make some accommodations. If we need to, it will be coming back to us for a final vote, well, potentially next month if we don't have a lot of feedback.
Thank you. Okay, next up is.
Chair Lee, I'm
Yes.
sorry, I just have a quick
comment. I'd like to thank the Community Development Department staff for putting these things together. Code enforcement is one of the main things that we have to protect and preserve our property values. So these may seem like funny things or things that don't make a lot of sense, but I had a neighbor in Dallas that liked to work on his cars, and he had an engine hanging on a chain on a limb of his tree in his front yard for about 3 months, and the car sitting underneath the tree with the hood open. And believe me, when we put a for sale sign on the house, we paid him $100 to take that darn engine out of the tree. Unfortunately, Dallas didn't have a code that prevented that. So things like tarps or fences or abandoned cars left in somebody's backyard really can affect people's property value. So what may seem like regulation is really a way of preserving our tax base, our investments in our homes and our properties. So thank you for continuing to look at how things are changing in society and updating our ordinances to reflect those changes.
Thank you, Alderman Ebone. Any final thoughts, questions? If not, next up is adjournment. Do we need to vote on adjournment?
No.
Okay, thanks.
Subject to the
we're
call of the
adjourned.
chair.
Okay, then we are adjourned.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.